Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Agostinho Zinga show with me, your host, Agostinho Zinga, and this is episode number 388. That's 388, 388. How you feeling? How you doing? Good, great, good to know. If it's your first time listening to the show or watching actually via YouTube, make sure you smash that like button, hit the notification bell, smash that like button, and also leave me a comment down below. If you listen via the podcast app, please give me a 5-star review, download the show and share with your friends. And as always, support via Patreon is always welcome. And I'm going to be releasing one exclusive Patreon episode available for all backers, available only on Patreon. So if you want to get access to it, make sure you subscribe to the Patreon, no delay. We're here, we're back in the sector, still drinking a glass of water. We're what, 2 weeks into COVID? We're more than 2 weeks into COVID. We are, what are we? 2 weeks, or 3 weeks into Sober October. How are you feeling? I'm feeling pretty good. Thanks you for asking myself. Sober October has been a bit easy this time around because I've been at home and I've had 7 months or 6 months of unparalleled carefree drinking and other excesses. So now to have an opportunity to kind of wind it back down and have a little bit of a pause, and take things a little bit more slowly, it's welcomed. I like the break. I'm not mad at it whatsoever. I know for some people it might seem a bit difficult to do it now because if ever there's an excuse to get hammered, if ever there's an excuse to just kind of let loose and kind of go a bit crazy, this will be it, wouldn't it? So I can understand the rationale behind it, but for myself, I just need a bit of a break, man. I need to kind of take my foot off the pedal and have a little bit of a chill moment if that's possible at all. And COVID. Well, I keep saying COVID. Sober October kind of allows me to do so. So been pretty fair. It's been pretty alright. Again, training as per usual, doing my starting strength Monday, Wednesdays, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays doing a bit of running. So 6 days of training back to back to back. It's been pretty decent. I started off doing the first week mostly just strength training, and then supplementing it with some bodyweight stuff. This week I'm gonna obviously ramp it up with the running, and then next week I'm going to be doing a couple of double days. So definitely watch this space for an update. If you see my face changing in shape, or if you see my eyes, which you can't see behind these shades, drooping, or if I start to talk in a very labored way, you will know exactly why, because this stuff will be kicking my ass. But regardless, we've got a jam-packed show for you today, loads of stuff to get through, so I don't want to waste any more of your precious time. We're going to just dive on deep on the topics and get started where we need to get started. So first things first, Supreme decided to announce the release of the new Air Max collaboration that they're putting out henceforth. I thought they were going to do another one. I thought it might have been a Tailwind Air Max or something along those kind of lines, but maybe that's something we're going to see later in the season. But Supreme have, usually have always kind of pulled the Nike collabs off really well. I do appreciate how they always kind of, opt for a model that isn't the most baitist, right? They tend to go for models that are kind of underloved or, not rated as much as the others. And I guess the Air Max Plus, or the Air Max TN as it's known here in the UK, is one of those models. It kind of gets overlooked when you look at stuff like the 98, or no, 98, you look at stuff like the 90 and 95, which, the probably the most popular Air Max models here in the UK and maybe worldwide. And then you look at stuff like the 98, which was, really popular I'd say in Europe in general. It was probably the most popular European shoe, probably after the Nike Air Max Plus, but I don't really see it translating that well in the US. But regardless, they decided to do it. I love the look of it. This is it on the screen here, news from Supreme. They say there's the following. Supreme must work with Nike on a new version of the Air Max Plus along with a running hat. So that's an interesting flip on it, right? They usually do a full little apparel collection. So interesting they decide just to go with the shoes and the hat this time around. The shoe features a mesh upper with a custom TPU fingers at the side, raised TPU logos at the tongue and heel, and TPU toe cap, a polyurethane midsole, the tuned air cushioning rubber outsole with TPU shank plate, mesh tongue with reflective panels, and co-branded footbed. Now, am I the only person that loves reading the Supreme descriptions? I love it. I love the breakdown, snap button, snap front on their clothing and stuff. Like I would just copy that if I had my own online store. I love how they describe things to the, minute minutia. They continue, said the running hat features a dry fit featherlight fabric with printed logo side panels, raised rubber logo at the front, and an embroidered logo on the back, reflective printed logos, and adjustable strap. Made exclusive for Supreme, the Air Max Plus and the running hat will be offered in 3 colorways, available October 15th. available in Japan October 17th, and the white color is available in November. So let's see what the images of them actually look like. It looks pretty impressive, to be fair. You got this really amazing neon color, probably my favorite of the bunch. Styled really well as well, with the blue, electric blue pants. Joggers, whatever. Then you've got another color which is kind of a bit of a typical sort of Air Max Plus sort of colorway, with the sort of red, kind of fire flame. There's a flame one that they've done prior, I think, in the past. And of course, you got the little well placed image of a dog there on the side, very reminiscent of sort of the boys that used to wear them in the area that I used to frequent, where people used to put on Air Maxes and chase people that had that look different from how they looked, let's say that. And then you got the white pair that looks stupendous, right? All white with just the right white swoosh on the side. Really, really great colorway. Again, simply done, very nicely pulled off as well. I'm a big fan of those. So you got the flame pair, standard, and then I like the neon. I'm not too sure what. I'd assume the most popular one that's probably going to sell out first will probably be this. I'll assume, or maybe it'll be the neon. What's got the red box logo? Maybe it'll be the whites actually. Yeah, see, the white might sell that quickly because they've got this on the top, right? They've got the box logo, in the classic sort of markup. So that might be the one that ends up selling out quicker than everything else. But for me personally, if I had to choose, and if you were asking my opinion, which you kind of are if you're listening to the show, I would say the neon is definitely the one. That's definitely the standout colorway. That looks absolutely amazing. And then then you've got obviously the free lineup. Yeah, the neon still stands out for me, even when you line them up like that. That looks the hardest. And then probably the whites next, and then I'd say that third, that kind of black with red. And then of course you got the cap, which unfortunately isn't going to fit this dome of mine. My head's just too big. This was I remember back in the day in Foot Locker, right? They used to do this thing where they'd sell these TN tracksuits. So at the time when tracksuits were big, there was like the standard tracksuit, and then they had like the kind of Air Max Plus sort of range that they usually do to match up with the shoes. So if there was a special release of a shoe, this was when they used to sell TNs and Air Maxes for like 120, sometimes 140, right? If you went on Littlewoods, like they were really, really expensive. So if you're a kid now and you're complaining about the price of shoes, let alone the access, trust me, it was the same back in the day. So I remember what they used to do. They'd make like a special capsule sort of collection for Foot Locker. Usually had them, and sometimes JD Sports. And usually you'd be able. I remember this was back in the day when Foot Locker used to do like t-shirts for like what, free for 30 or 20. I forgot how much it was, but there was always like a free pack you could get. They'd be on like those kind of tables that they have on Foot Locker, and you basically would have to go really early in the day. By the time, if you went late in the day, that table would be like a it kind of remind you of a Primark, a bit of merchandising where everything will be everywhere. But if you went early in the day, you were able to choose a really cool Nike t-shirt with some snazzy logo on it, some variation of Just Do It. And then they'll have that, and it had the normal rack of tracksuits that you could purchase, right? That were like anywhere between the price of like 50 to 80 pounds. And then they had these TN tracksuits that were usually on the mannequin on the front, and usually just the jacket alone would be like 60 quid, and you'd be like, what? It'll blow your head, and it'd be like insane to do. And so you can imagine the whole suit would maybe fetch you about 110, 120. And back then it was expensive. So imagine what the kids are paying now for these Kith and Pata tracksuits that go anywhere between from like 180 pounds plus, right? Sometimes $180, whatever it is. They're not the cheapest. So it's really interesting to see the change in things. And I think in general too, from what I've seen anyway, kids mostly avoid wearing but they're not. It's not like a tracksuit isn't the staple it once was in a boy's wardrobe as it was when I was in school. Like you had to have a really banging tracksuit when I was in school. You couldn't get away without having one. But nowadays it feels like kids are probably a lot more fashion conscious, so they'd probably opt for some variation of some jean with some chrome hearts badges on it, some expensive trainers, some really high fashion menswear outerwear piece, maybe some core streetwear brand, skateboarding brand top or something. But regardless, their outfits will fetch in the high thousands already. Because a tracksuit is a good equalizer, because it allows people like myself, especially when I was growing up, who didn't have much money, it allows you to flex without having to spend too much money, right? If you have a decent tracksuit, even back then, you could basically wear the jacket with a pair of jeans, wear the bottoms with a different hoodie. You could just mix them up and kind of stretch out your tracksuit for as long as you can. I remember even myself, I only had like 3, maybe 2 tracksuits that I purchased, and I think One was purchased from Foot Locker Sell, and the other one was purchased from Sports Direct. They weren't the best things in the world, but the way I took care of those beauties, man, you would have thought I kind of bought. You would have thought flipping Phil Knight gave them to me by hand, mate. I took real care of them, washing those things by hand in the sink, in the bathtub. You know, all your hands get all red and shit because I didn't want my mum to put it in the washing machine and fuck it up and shit, right? Because you know it's a house full of boys, isn't it? She's not gonna be picking a delicate wash for my items, you know what I mean? There's other people that probably need oh look, I just realized on the side of the hat that flame spells out Supreme. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Did you see that? I just noticed that now, just talking. That's really cool on the side of the hat. You got this sort of like airbrush pattern that spelled out Supreme on the side. That's amazing. I wonder who did that. I assume somebody in-house, right? Probably ended up designing that. Does that cover the same thing on the shoes too? Yeah, it does. That's sick. I just clocked that. Did you know clock? Yeah, look. Supreme. That is fucking awesome. These are really nice, man. That green pair is beautiful. I'd wear the fuck out of that, really, to be honest. But yeah, check those out. Releasing sometime this week. And if you're hearing this later, then they're probably gone and you're never going to get them anyway. So check those out if you're interested. Next on the list, we have an update, and a really cool, nice update, actually. My guy, what's his face? Dogface, right? Has got blessed in the best way possible with some cranberry juice and a new truck from the CEO, or the CEO of the actual company itself. So this is a great way to end an epic saga on social media. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Dogface. His video of him skateboarding down the highway somewhere in America to the, you know, legendary song by Fleetwood Mac, Dreams, went viral. It spread across, you know, the entire social media sphere, partly due to what we're kind of going through at the moment. Everyone kind of feeling a bit down, you know, people's countries on fire. Politics is kind of the name in the game on most social media platforms. It's nice to kind of unplug and kind of, you know, have a bit of a good vibe story, and his was a best vibe story because you saw this guy who, you know, by all intents and purposes probably doesn't have, you know, much money in his pocket, many prospects up and coming, but on that day he was really feeling himself, having a hell of a time. He tried to upload this really innocent video, really pure in heart, and it seemed to capture everyone's imagination, myself included. Especially on that day, I was having a bit of a tough one, so to see this guy just beaming from ear to ear, skateboarding, having a juice and enjoying himself, you know, was really, really cool. It just kind of, you know, brought you back to it brought you back to the significance and the, you know, insignificance of this moment that we're going through, right? It's a blip in time. Obviously at the moment we're all really suffering in various ways, but we need to kind of hold our hope and dream, you know, no pun intended, that better days will come. And I guess he kind of represented that, and epically it ended in an epic way. This is a headline from Eater. It says skateboarding cranberry juice sipping TikToker was given a new truck by Ocean Spray. So it says the following here: dreams do come true. Sorry, as a pun, right? By now you've likely seen the viral TikTok and blissed out guys skateboarding to Fleetwood Mac Dreams while drinking out of a bottle of Ocean Spray cranberry juice. It's delightful, and not only because it's a feat of coordination that its creator Nathan Apodak, aka 420 Dogface 208, is treating like a walk in the park. Let's watch it again. So obviously that's him skateboard. I'm not going to play it because, you know, copyrighted music and that. It continues. The video is so popular it spawned a host of copycats, including one of the Mick Fleetwood himself, which I saw, which is epic to see. Meanwhile, Apodaka revealed that he was only skateboarding that day because his car broke down. So what an epic story, isn't it? So Ocean Spray came in and, thankful for spontaneous publicity, gifted him with a new cranberry colored truck and a truck bed full of bottles of cranberry juice. And you know what I love about this too, right? They gave him a truck. So I'm assuming in the US, I'd assume somebody like a Dogface works a job where he's required to, you know, have maybe a truck that can carry things from point A to point B, or he might do some other things on the side that will require him to carry things from point A to point B. But regardless, having a truck in your possession is a really versatile and a really handy thing, I'd imagine, if you're somebody that's kind of, you know, working various odd jobs. So to give him something that he can actually use is amazing, because, you know, sometimes, you know, sometimes even with the best intentions, you know, some of these companies may go a bit over the top and give somebody like him, like, I don't know, like a brand new, some stupid sports car, right? Or something that's not very practical to him or doesn't necessarily serve his purpose or serve his needs. So I'm glad they did. I'm not sure if they contacted the dude prior, but I think it was such an apt and such a correct, on point, gift that wasn't condescending or anything, that really kind of spoke to, especially his point in time that he's living at the moment. Of course, he even mentioned a few interviews that he'd love to get like a year's full surprise, a year's supply of cranberry juice, and I guess he got that exactly. So this is a video here from Ocean Spray depicting what exactly happened. Let's play a bit of it now. Okay, him coming out of his caravan. Oh, sick. Look how cool that is. That is awesome.
Thanks for keeping it positive.
That is so awesome.
All Motion Spray is yours. All from Motion Spray to you, man. Congratulations. That's yours.
If you don't smile watching that, your heart's full of darkness. It continues. In the statement to Eater, Tom Hayes, the president and CEO of Ocean Spray, said, "When we saw Nathan Apodaca's video and the joy it created, we knew we needed to celebrate him and join in his movement of spreading good vibes worldwide. Yesterday, Ocean Spray was humbled to gift Nathan with something of importance to him, a truck we knew he needed. We appreciate Nathan's positivity, especially during these unprecedented times. I look forward to having a virtual toast with him soon. And benevolent corporate gifts, they will come and go, but at least Apodaca has a new truck." Exactly. So, the gesture of giving him some, a life supply of bloody juice is amazing, but that truck is going to go such a long way. He's definitely going to use it. It's definitely going to be something that's going to open up loads of doors in his life and shit. And again, it couldn't happen to a nicer dude. Do you know what I mean? By all intents and purposes. And that's great to see, in it, really. Again, in unprecedented times, at least somebody out there is getting something from these dark days that we're going through. So yeah, big up him. Second, what else? Oh yeah, we have this other news from Eater, actually, another food related information. If you've been paying attention, you'd know there has been a bit of a beef over at Condé Nast regarding the very widely popular online test kitchen show on YouTube called Bon Appetit, which kind of spawned from a magazine that was fairly good. I bought a couple of issues back in the day. Fairly decent magazine full of hipsters, over-grandizing about, avocado and toast and shit. But, it serves its purpose. But when it kind of shifted to doing videos on YouTube, it went in a whole different stratosphere. I myself can get a little bit grossed out by overindulgent, self-absorbed hipsters kind of, pontificating about really mundane things. But Test Kitchen on Bon Appetit really captured my imagination, really got me interested in sometimes replicating some of the recipes. It kind of got you rooting for certain people that you kind of, fell in love with via the video platform, people that you kind of liked, you end up following them on social media, blah, 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 blah. You know how that game goes, isn't it? Widely popular. Probably the most popular organically platform that Condé Nast has sort of kind of got their fingers in. But then unfortunately they went through a bit of an episode where a few members of staff felt that they were not being properly compensated due to the color of their skin, especially when compared to some of the other castmates they have on the platform who happen to be Caucasian. And it spawned a whole debate that essentially whittled down to the idea of just have people on some sort of level of parity, or at least create some sort of tiered payment structure so that people are clear where they stand. For some reason, Condé Nast wouldn't agree to it. They didn't want to cave, or didn't want to come to some sort of middle ground with the talent on the program, and by some way, shape or form, they allowed it to essentially just crumble. Right, people were leaving left, right and center after the negotiation kind of took a bit of a turn for the worse, and it seemed like things were going to go from bad to worse. But the mainstays of the channel, the people that were, you would say, generate the most views on the channel, seemed that they was hanging on. But now this news on Bon Appetit regarding the channel kind of would hurt a lot of fans, and I'm sure is definitely another nail in the coffin of that channel overall, unless they go out their way to get some really diverse and interesting castmates to basically replace the people that are leaving. But I think it's going to be hard to replace them anyway. So it says here, breakout star Claire parts way with Bon Appetit Test Kitchen. So she was one of the standouts on there. alongside with Brad, of course. It continues to, despite new leadership at Bon Appetit, Claire says her time there is over. On Tuesday, Bon Appetit Test Kitchen personality Claire announced that she would not be continuing a relationship with Bon Appetit or Condé Nast Entertainment. She says the following: "Hi friends, a note to share with you all. I've taken the past several months to process and make thoughtful, deliberate decisions about the future. My former relationship with Condé Nast Entertainment ended in May of this year, and I've decided not to continue the relationship. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm grateful for Bon Appetit and Condé Nast Entertainment for the opportunity to build my career on their platforms, but this opportunity was not granted equally to all. Of course, I respect and support the decisions of many of my colleagues to blaze new trails and look forward to following all of their great work." Again, end of an era. Bon Appetit's new leadership, coupled with the incredible hard work and dedication of the staff, make me confident that it could be more equitable, inclusive, and dynamic place in the future. My book is due out in just a few weeks. Awesome. I'm so excited to share it with you. I'll be here more often to tell you about all the new stuff I'm working on, I promise. So it's interesting to see where she ends up going. It continues here. Claire is the 7th Test Kitchen personality to step away. 7 people they let go. 7. Condé Nast, man, madness, innit? Step away over the past several months. Hosts including Priya Krishna, Shola, Molly, Carla have all chosen to end their video contracts after months of unsuccessful negotiations with Bon Appetit and Condé Nast Entertainment over race-based discrepancies within the Test Kitchen and long-standing culture of tokenization and inequality of non-white talent. Claire has a book coming out in a few weeks, and if the career trajectories of other famous Test Kitchen stars are an indication, she'll probably do just fine. Yeah, and ultimately, I guess that's basically what the point of this is, isn't it? As disappointing as it may be for fans like myself, I think it's probably the best for everybody involved, especially the people who you kind of felt like had a brand or something about them anyway when they were on the Test Kitchen. They don't necessarily need Test Kitchen to survive or to be relevant in these, social media food streets. They can do it on their own, and they have a lot more, they have several years of hard science and hard data to prove that they have some kind of pull. And I'm sure somebody like a Claire can command a pretty hefty salary or rate from various amounts of brands out there that want to kind of get her involved. So great to see. Hopefully she doesn't end up at like Vice or something. Those kind of dead platforms want to revive their place and they want to hook her up. So I'm not sure if Vice is part of Condé Nast. No, Refinery 29 might be in it, but hopefully she kind of does her own thing anyway in general, sets up her own YouTube and something like that. That would be really cool. I think people love seeing her get flustered over making stuff on Bon Appetit. That would be cool to see that happening again, but unfortunately we won't be seeing the gang in that kind of collective capacity anytime soon. But again, all things are pointing towards positivity, but it'll be interesting to see what Condé Nast does with the Bon Appetit platform. Will they go out and get a more inclusive, diverse cast of people to put in the Test Kitchen, and how those people feel knowing everything that's occurred with all these other past members who were who had a lot more weight than them, right? They had a lot more pull in the company, and they still weren't listened to, or they still didn't feel as if there was any kind of fair conclusion that came out of the negotiation. So how do you feel if you're replacing those people? Do you feel as if your voice is going to get heard, or will those new people just feel like, hey, this is turning a new leaf, this is the entertainment industry, we're just going to keep it moving, and they're going to try and sort of like rewrite the wrongs of whatever happened in the past? I wonder how they're going to feel going forward, but it's just to see if we see that development play out in public, or if they're going to do that behind closed doors. Let's see how they kind of figure this stuff out. But yeah, good luck to Claire in her new challenge. Moving on, we've got interesting news here regarding, is it going to show me or not? No, it's not going to show me. But let me see if I can get this up here and take this off. I've got to take off the ad blocker. It's always annoying when it does that, and it doesn't let you actually view a site without changing ad blocker, and then it ends up polluting the entire page with bloody ads, and then you end up pulling your hair out and getting very annoyed at an inanimate object, in it. Standard procedure. So this is news from NJ.com regarding the legendary radio host Howard Stern new deal with SiriusXM that has me questioning all my life choices. The headline reads as following: Howard Stern's new deal with SiriusXM to pay $120 million a year. Now, I know how it sounds a legend. Everyone that I listen to on podcasts always talks very glowingly about this guy. I don't necessarily get the hype. I don't understand it. I watched a couple or listened to a couple interviews. He seems very over intrusive. I guess that's kind of the charm of the interviews himself because he gets a lot more out of celebrities than anyone else would. But they get a bit annoying, all the silly drops and stuff. Everyone in the room essentially, sucking his knob. But I would imagine, especially in this era, that those kind of things, that his influence or his kind of popularity would wane. But it doesn't seem like it. It seems like he's gotten even, he's somehow managed to become even more famous over the years, even though he's kind of, been very boastful about his he's very skeptical about podcasting, right? He still thinks radio is king. And, if he's able to command 120 million M's, then that probably is true. But it makes me think like he must have the best agent in the world, one of the best in the world, how he can go into offices and negotiate such a rate considering how far behind he is technologically to what's actually happening. But that's also makes me think, am I just looking at this the wrong way? Is it just because I'm not his demographic and I don't drive a car and I don't have to commute long distances? Because I'd imagine a lot of people that listen to Howard Stern listen to him on commutes, right? That's probably the beauty of it, right? It's sort of like it's a probably better way to listen to radio than listen to talk radio, right? I'd imagine, right? Something along those kind of lines. It's a lot more entertaining. He has interesting guests on. He's lived a very interesting life. So far, I've heard he's taken a turn for the worse because he's a little bit of a scaremonger, not scaremonger, but he's overly concerned about COVID. Like he talks as if, if he steps outside of his house, he's gonna, essentially die, which is, it can get a bit much when people keep rapping on about politics and COVID and stuff. So I can definitely understand that. But Jesus, man, congrats to Howard Stern, innit? He's commanding 120 million M's, even in this era. It's pretty nuts to imagine this. And I wonder how that if his listener base or fans are ever going to age out of him. Like you just get to a point where it doesn't really necessarily entertain you that much to listen to him, or if he's just going to, keep on keeping on, and whoever listens, and he's just going to keep commanding that fee. Or because he's kind of been grandfathered in, isn't it? He was like the first guy to kind of do what he was doing. I don't really know that much about him, but I would love to get educated. If you guys have any more views on the guy and why he still commands that kind of fee, let me know in the comments below. But let's read a bit of the comment. Let's read a bit of the article. So it's the following. The biggest name in satellite radio is close to an even bigger contract. Shock Jock and king of all media, Howard Stern, is reportedly close to a new contract with Sirius XM satellite radio that would pay him nearly 120 million per year. Bloomberg reports Stern's contract expires at the end of the year, and he has reportedly been negotiating his new contract for most of the year. He has previously signed a 5-year deal that ranged from 80 to 100 million a year. The 66-year-old radio personality rose to fame with the Howard Stern Show, which was syndicated on radio from 1986 to 2005 before he signed with Sirius XM in 2006. He's also racked up massive fines. FCC fined him more than 2.5 million for what was considered an indecent content. Jesus. New Jersey native comedian Artie Lang was on the show from 2001 to 2009. Imagine listening to that would have been a massive. I'm a big fan of Artie Lang now, right? Just a shame, he keeps disappearing on us, but hopefully he's doing better. But imagine listening to radio at that era, right, and hearing someone like an Artie Lang and Howard Stern, doing their thing on radio. That must have been a great moment. So I can understand definitely the appeal, but Jesus, this guy's been syndicated since the 80s. Mad to think that, innit, right? It says, continue, said, I can tell you that we understand economics very, very well. For instance, of content like Howard Stern, said the Sirius CEO Jim Meyer reportedly said at a Goldman Sachs conference, he said, I can look every investor in the eye and tell them that what a good investment for Sirius XM. That's true, because that's something I always think about, especially when news leaked regarding Joe Rogan's deal with Spotify. As amazing as it is that Joe Rogan is finally, getting some big money, not finally, but he's always, he's bloody richer than rich he is. But it's great to hear somebody like him, getting a great payday. But you sometimes have to think to yourself, if they're willing to pay Joe Rogan this much, imagine what they're forecasting they're going to make off just licensing his podcast on their platform. They must be really, really happy, right, about the deal, even though, if from the eyes of the talent, the eyes of the content creator, you feel as if like you're stealing money, right? You feel as if like you've somehow swindled them. Not in Joe Rogan's case, no, not so much, because he's got the #1 podcast in the world, but you can somehow be led to believe that, maybe you've got too much from it. I don't know, whatever it is, right? I'm just thinking, what kind of money are they able to generate on the other side of the back of it? Because I'd imagine part of the deal that makes this lucrative to a place like Sirius is that they basically get to keep the majority of the ad revenue, I'd assume, something along those kind of lines, right? Because as great as his contract is for Howard Stern, he's still essentially an employee, right? He still has to turn up for work at a certain time, day in, day out. Now it probably helps that he's a radio man anyway. This is all that he's known. This is where he's kind of an expert at his field, and he enjoys getting up at 5 in the morning and doing a show or whatever it may be. But god damn it, man, they must be making some serious P on the other side. It continues as serious stock um has been down as much as 22% this year, but climbed to 7% upon the news that Stern's new deal was close. There was some thought in the industry that Stern could leave Sirius for Spotify music service and massive podcasting network. Oh, I've learned reports that talks with Stern and Spotify never went far. Interesting though, isn't it? I wonder if that kind of played a role in his in the jacked up fee. When Sirius heard that Spotify was circling the water, they probably thought, you know what, we don't want to take any chances. We got to wrap this thing up, because the last thing they need is for Joe. The last thing Sirius need is for, like, Joe Rogan, but the last thing they need is for one of their bigger talents to go on Spotify and take all their listeners with them as well. That won't be the best thing going forward. But it also seems like an avenue, an opportunity for someone like a Spotify to maybe get involved in maybe creating some hardware, maybe some sort of interface that they can plug into cars, because I think that's what I remember hearing about Sirius, that it sometimes comes stock with some vehicles, right? So imagine in America, what's the most popular car there? Is it the Ford Raptor, right? That's that pickup truck. So imagine if the Ford Raptor comes preloaded with Sirius on there, or like a free trial for a couple of months, and then you get the other months half price or whatever, some incentive to sign up to a subscription service. That might be a reason why he's listened to for so many people. It's sort of like, you remember when you used to get an iPod and it used to come preloaded with U2. I'm not sure if it still does. I mean, probably still does, and I'd assume so. I'm sure that kind of artificially increased their streaming numbers, because when you first got the phone out of the box and you went to test if the speakers were working, you just whack on whatever tune was in your music folder. But yeah, congrats to him in it going forward. But again, like I said, I'm not very au fait or familiar with Howard Stern and his legacy, so if any of you guys know exactly why he commands that sort of fee and why he's so important, especially nowadays with the rise of podcasts, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Moving on, of course, in the UK we're suffering. Nightlife and entertainment industry is suffering. We're on our knees due to coronavirus and the restrictions come in place in the UK regarding performing in small venues. Of course, people are worried that if you perform in these venues, you could potentially be spreading the virus, but so far the findings have been quite thin in terms of backing up that assertion. And in general, the government doesn't seem like they want to budge, and so much so last week Rishi Sunak decided to ill-advisedly give a comment without kind of giving any context to it or providing much information or support prior. He basically put out a comment which essentially insinuated that entertainers or people working within the nightlife industry or the creative industry or the arts should essentially look for other roles, other positions, because in this moment in time their dreams cannot be sustained in any kind of meaningful way. I think for most people, most sensible folk out there, most adults, obviously we know that was true, but it just came across in bad taste. It came across inconsiderate. It didn't have any humanity attached to it. People have essentially worked their entire lives to be musicians, to be artists, to work in industry that they know and love. To suddenly tell them that they need to retrain is really offensive and really hurtful, really, in that respect. And none more so no one kind of described their feelings better than Tim Burgess, frontman of the Charlatans. Penned this really great open letter that I'm going to read to you now. It's called "The Arts Aren't Luxurious Hobby, Rishi Sunak, They're a Lifeline for Millions" by Tim Burgess of the Charlatans. So it mentions the following: One ITV News tweeted on Tuesday that Rishi Sunak has said that musicians and others in the arts should retrain and find other jobs. The arts world figuratively saddled up its steeds and prepared to descend on the 11 Downing Street with flaming torches. But then came what is known in the music world as the big rewind in the house. After much uproar, ITV deleted the tweet and said it was misleading, but thespians were already orating. Liam Gallagher was already halfway out of his jacket looking for a scrap. What had Sunak actually said then? He said, it's a very sad time. I can't pretend that everyone can do exactly the same job that they were doing in the beginning of the crisis, and that's why we've put a lot of extra resources into trying to create new opportunities for people. Asked whether he was really telling people from the arts and the music to simply go and get a new job in a different sector, he said, that is fresh and your opportunity for people. That's exactly what we should be doing. No further questions, Your Honor. He didn't say it bluntly as soundbites put it, but yeah, it's in there, isn't it? He didn't not say it, which is very true. And I guess that's the issue, because they haven't, they've been very clear with certain things regarding Corona and the restrictions here in the UK. But when they want to be, purposely vague and sort of get out of actually giving any direct answers to really pressing concerns, they are masters of appearing vague and talking in circles. And this is another way of doing it, because there's been no real support to a nightlife scene or the bar culture or whatever you may deem it as to be. For Sunak to come out and say this comment, it's natural that people would kind of go to the conclusion that, hey, they don't give a shit about us. But really, he wasn't actually saying that. He was actually saying to people to maybe, he was trying to manage expectations, right? Maybe saying, not everyone's going to be able to get out this, the other side still working in the career that they want to work in, which is fairly fair, which is kind of fair assertion to make. I definitely understand that. I think most people living in this country under a Tory government, it should come as no surprise that they would have no interest in backing the arts in any kind of meaningful way, especially when there's a downturn in the economy we're going through, whatever we're going through. The first place to go would be our hallowed, clubs and bars. But places like the theatre and stuff industry are probably going to survive some way, shape or form. You can make of that what you please, but let's continue. He says, we totally understand that everyone is facing hardship at the moment, but there was something offhand in Sonak's words. People felt dismissed and undervalued. What Sonak didn't seem to take into account was that musicians and actors have been working other jobs for years as baristas, chefs, roadies, graphic designers or bartenders, and in so many roles ironically named gig economy, to fill the time between, well, gigs. When I tweeted that many musicians and artists already had second jobs, the writer and journalist Ravi Sumaya nailed it with his reply. Nobody remembers Renaissance accountants. And that's the interesting part of it, because I think most people, from my knowledge, especially in London or in the UK, sorry, a lot of people kind of have to have second jobs because the cost of living here is so, it's so high anyway. It's very rare that you have the opportunity to kind of commit yourself, fully to the career, whatever you kind of carved out for yourself in the arts. But obviously when you do get the opportunity, you're completely over the moon. And it's understandable that once you do finally find a way in and you find your little groove and you find your little nook in the scene, you're not going to give it up under any circumstance. I can understand the people that are kicking off, but again, to suggest from Rishi Sunak that somehow people in the industry haven't working second jobs is crazy, because what's actually happened is that not only has your kind of DJing career sort of come to a grinding halt, the second job that kind of kept the lights on or allowed you to pay for your travel, or that you allowed you the extra income to buy records, has also disappeared, right? Many pubs, many restaurants, many retail stores have closed because they don't have the same traffic that they had in the past, so they can't actually support you. So two dreams or two occupations, two sources of income have been completely scrapped in most cases for most people, which is the really, really concerning thing. And so far, no real clear indication as to how the government intends to sort of support those people. It continues here. It's said that in certain parts of Shoreditch in London or Manchester Northern Quarter, you're never more than 12 feet from a singer in a band. But it's a long time since the heyday days when you could write a song, release an album, and live off the income from royalties and record sales. Nowadays, you'll need well over 1,000 streams just to be able to buy a coffee, unless of course you're working as a barista, in which you can probably just make yourself one. And increasingly, music is being offered for free to an audience who get them music from streaming platforms. Even before the pandemic, it wasn't looking good for artists who are just trying out, which is probably the reason why everyone's so enthusiastic about what Kanye is doing in terms of his drive to get artists back their masters. Because if ever there was a time where artists were probably ruining the day that they kind of gave away their rights to their music, it'll be now. Because when there's no opportunity for you to make money in the road, which most musicians make their money actually performing live, selling merchandise, you need to be able to create some revenue from people streaming your music. But unfortunately, if you don't own the masters, if you don't own the rights to your music, you're going to see a very, very small fraction of whatever profits that your music makes whilst you're locked in at home. And for people that haven't been streaming online prior to the pandemic or to lockdown, to restrictions, it's going to be very difficult to suddenly turn on your camera and start performing live in your home to an audience of 10 people, and for it to feel worthwhile, right? You need to have built some of that that rapport, some of that interest prior. So it's a very difficult position they're putting people in the government, and again, they haven't necessarily provided any sort of resolution to get it to work on the other side. It continues here, said live music was the final place where most bands could still earn enough to follow their dream, and 6 months ago that disappeared with no return in sight. An entire summer of music festivals cancelled, along with the worlds of stand-up comedy, western theatres and tourism shows all gone. Touring shows are all gone. The worry is that the next generation of performers will come only from the certain sectors of society, which is true. We probably saw that prior anyway. With that's why you're seeing some DJs, flying out to exotic locations just to go and have a holiday, right? That's why you should keep an eye on the DJs who are just flying out to places, not even to play, just to dip their toes into some clear blue seas and swan around on a really golden beach somewhere and get fed by that what's his face, by that Salt Bay guy, get fed some half-cooked bloody steaks in your mouth. I'm jealous because I want the steak myself, but you can definitely see the ones that have the means to kind of weather the storms and the ones that are just kind of hunkering down, hoping that things open. But it continues here. It says, it felt as if the Chancellor was rebranding the art sector as some sort of luxurious, decadent hobby, and now it was time for everyone to get their hands dirty, perhaps literally, as we are very short on the people to pick through. Is that part of his master plan to plug the gaps left by the exodus of migrant workers with people from bands? We could divide them according to skill sets: drummers keeping a steady beat as they scoop up the armfuls of berries, bass players keeping locked in them and working to the rhythm, while the singers wander around randomly picking up select items of fruit when the mood strikes them. Acting, creating art, playing music was buoyed up the UK's economy for decades, and this is the interesting part of it. In 2018 alone, the music industry contributed to more than 5 billion to the UK's economy. The Conservatives' own figures show that in the same year, 296,000 people were working in music and performing at visual arts. Jesus Christ. The government has even been happy to persuade tourists to head over to our shores via pictures of the Beatles, Florence Welch, Shakespeare, Stormzy, and beautiful theatres and aerial photos of fun being had on an industrial scale at Glastonbury. Has this all been forgotten? Of course it has, because we're in a downturn. When we're on the up and things are going where they're going, they're going to pretend like they're all about the arts, and as soon as sacrifice needs to be made, guess who's going to be first in line? Us. It continues. He said, I'm guessing Sunak wasn't suggesting Ed Sheeran should become a plumber's mate, but what happens when Ed Sheeran's or the Adeles of the future abandon their dreams and what they've been left with their artists, bringing in billions and inspiring others in the future? Other countries have found a way to protect their citizens who work in the arts, and when we somehow get back to a version of normal, won't it be the bands, the musicians and the players that provide the escape, just as the books and the music have been beacon of light in the darkest of lockdown? And definitely true. There's a few paragraphs and I won't read the whole thing, but definitely check it out. I'll leave the link in the show notes. It's called The Arts Aren't Luxurious Hobby, Rishi Sunak, Their Lifeline for Millions by Tim Burgess. A really, really great article explaining exactly how most people in the arts feel at this current time. So what else do we talk about here? Let's move on. What else do we have here? What is this one here? Oh yeah, this is this is flipping insane. So I guess we're all wearing masks now. We all have to wear some sort of face covering in this new normal that we're currently living in. And I guess as we should expect, some startups, some technology companies out there are deciding to fill a niche, right, by providing alternatives to the surgical masks that we're wearing or balaclavas or whatever else that you're putting at the moment, and they're trying to make these weird contraptions that are somehow going to allow us to live as best a life as we can whilst we're living in this quote unquote new normal. And one of these examples that I saw on my feed was this crazy space helmet that's kind of reminiscent of something you'd see a SpaceX astronaut wearing, and it's flipping insane, all batshit crazy, but maybe there's some sort of element of realism to it. So this is the headline here. It says, forget face shields, this helmet purifies air you breathe and exhale. So not only is it providing you a COVID space, a COVID safe space, it's also providing you the best COVID safe space that money can buy by purifying the air that you breathe and exhale. So it continues. It's the article. It says, with no end of the coronavirus pandemic in sight, we're all thinking a bit more about our health and how to keep it. While masks are a vital accessory when in public, Microclimate's new helmet takes the idea to a face covering to a whole new level. Appropriately dubbed Air, the insulating model completely encapsulate the head and neck with a clear acrylic visor to provide an obstructed view. But more than providing coverage, the unit also has a HEPA air filters to purify both the incoming and outgoing air. Originally developed during World War II to remove radioactive particles from the air, the HEPA filters remain the gold standard of air filtration and are capable of capturing the COVID-19 virus when airborne. Their assuredness, with no doubt, make every plane ride and Uber trip that much more comfortable. But look at how bizarre that looks. But I could imagine, because of course the video or the picture that we're seeing now on screens of two sort of business executive looking guys who I imagine are the founders of this company, right? They're probably just trying to do a proof of concept sort of thing. But I can definitely envision, that's the word. Really, some of our most well-known performers. I can definitely see like a Beyonce or somebody of that ilk deciding to perform somewhere and put that helmet on to make it make sense. You can definitely see Lady Gaga maybe performing on a show somewhere wearing this mask in order to put on a COVID secure show and entertain crowds of people who also want to go and attend. I can definitely see this being a thing for a certain segment of society. But will this be accepted or kind of trickle down to regular civilians like you and I? Probably not. I don't want to be wearing this doofusy head helmet everywhere I go. It doesn't look comfortable. It looks absolutely utterly absurd. And to be quite honest, I'm enjoying having half of my face covered up. I'm enjoying the fact that people aren't necessarily get a read on my face and aren't necessarily staring into my dome. And I don't know about you, but especially during COVID, everyone's sort of keeping their distance, everyone's avoiding small chat. It feels like the best of times. It kind of reminds me of that what's that sketch on that show? What's his face where he's like, oh, I hate stopping chats, right? That's reminding me of that sort of thing. There are no more stopping chats in the age of COVID, or if there are, you're stopping and chatting from a distance and spudding or elbowing each other. So that always creates a bit of a barrier, and there's no time to create rapport or to have some sort of warmth in the conversation because half your face is obscure. So the last thing I want is to somehow open it up again. As you can see, I haven't necessarily been keeping, my face in any kind of tip-top condition. So this is definitely something that I'm not definitely down for. But again, I can definitely see high-flying executives who actually need to meet face-to-face, or really high-earning, artists who kind of want to get one last payday in before things get back to normal, deciding to put on this helmet in a COVID secure venue or concert somewhere and then entertaining crowds of people from a stage. It's proper cyberpunky, but it definitely makes some sense in that regard. It continues, said, when fully charged via a streamlined USB port, and Air can operate for over 5 hours. Not the best runtime, to be honest. Enough to get you through a mid-range flight. Though it can recharge on the go, it does take a full 8 hours to top up completely. Oof. It's not a lot, is it? The built-in HEPA filters can last 4 to 6 weeks when used regularly, and the brand is currently developing easy replacement for the future owners. Sound inside the helmet is somewhat muffled, and the brand claims is working on this issue. Yeah, how are they gonna do that? And the speech remains audible for those inside and outside the helmet, so you can't necessarily hear that well by your COVID. But I can, I'm sure they could have fit in some monitors in there and get that sort of thing working. But it's such a bizarre thing, and who would have imagined Christmas of last year that we'd be seeing companies racing, right? Trying to develop helmets and face shields and whatever it may be, face coverings, quick as they can, right? Because essentially this is the beauty of the modern era that we live in. You could essentially sketch this up, mock this up on a on a bit of CAD software pretty quickly, probably get a prototype done fairly fast as well, especially somewhere locally, considering most of their jobs and contacts were eviscerated due to COVID, and get something out to market in a very fast manner, right? You can even get some crowdfunding done prior to actually releasing the physical item via stuff like Kickstarter and all that malarkey. But who would imagine in Christmas of 2019 that we'd be seeing ourselves watching videos of two guys wearing a helmet that looks like something out of, I don't know, some Christopher Nolan movie, right? And trying to make it look as normal as possible. Like, it's just utterly bizarre. And then we kind of see a video here, or no, it's a clip, not a video, a clip of actually a picture of these two guys wearing the said helmet mock-ups on a bench somewhere, making it seem as normal as they can. and it's really, really, really odd. Again, I don't necessarily see myself wearing something like this. It looks too dystopian for me. I'd much rather just stay at home and wait for things to get normal, right? This is not enough for me to go back to a rave. If someone told me, hey, we're going to put raves back on, but you have to wear this helmet to play or to go, I'm not going. It's just too much. It's bad enough as it is going to a rave with a flipping face mask on, right? And then going to the toilets and getting up to whatever you're getting up to and then putting it back on again. It's a bit odd. But imagine going to the toilet and having a full helmet on. You have to kind of take it off, and it's just so odd. It's so bizarre. But hey, if it helps some people, then c'est la vie. But let me know your comments down below. Would you wear such a helmet? Would this be an option for you to get back to a semblance of normality, or would you much rather, like myself, wait until things get back to normal as they were prior to COVID? Let me know in the comments down below. We continue. What else we got here? Ooh, news in the comedy podcasting space. Unfortunate news actually, regarding somebody that I'm a big fan of actually, Andrew Santino from the Bad Friends podcast and also from the Whiskey Ginger podcast, his own little show, has announced via his show with Dr. Drew, or the Whiskey Ginger show where his guest was Dr. Drew. He announced that unfortunately he also has caught COVID, and from what he said on his show, it seemed like there's been a few comics out there who have caught COVID but have been quite quiet about it. Now, I'm assuming most of it has to do with the negative response online in general from people going out, trying to make money and just existing in the world, right? And then catching COVID. There doesn't seem to be a lot of sympathy for these people, especially comedians who are, were kind of, I think in the arts might have been the first people pushing things and being a bit cheeky and putting on shows outside when they probably shouldn't have put on shows. It doesn't matter. And then none better example, or there was no a worse example of that than the Fire and the Kid boys, right? Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen, prior to all the allegations, decided to go out on a tour, and there's no real problem with people going out and trying to earn some money or just trying to go out to connect with the fans. But obviously, prior to them going out on their tour, if you listen to the Fire and Kid, you know that they were huge COVID deniers, right? They were really annoyed by it, which makes sense considering they live in LA, and Gavin Newsom was probably one of the staunchest people kind of against opening up the economy in any kind of shape or form. He was kind of one of the alarmists who was very against any kind of reopening of the economy, people getting back to normal. So you can understand the frustration day to day for some of these comedians who essentially required getting on stage was part of their kind of everyday life. To suddenly be denied of that kind of was really a shock to the system. But again, it's no excuse for how Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub behaved when it came to COVID. And then naturally, as the universe would kind of permit, they went out to Texas, decided to do a show, ill-advisedly did meet and greets, hugging fans, not wearing a mask, and guess what? Boom, they get COVID. And no sympathy was shown to them. They got absolutely ridiculed online. Brendan Schaub got completely battered on his comments. The Cannon was being quite cocky about it at the beginning, then he called it and he got really ill, and then I guess that kind of humbled him to some certain extent, but he handled it really poorly. They didn't, there was no real humility about the issue, and if anything, it sort of for some reason, I don't know why, for COVID deniers, whenever they get it, it seems like they just double down on whatever ill-advised, ill-informed, nonsensical opinion they have regarding coronavirus. It doesn't seem to open their eyes to be like, actually it's a serious issue. If I just put a mask on, maybe I would have avoided it. But on the flip side, someone like an Andrew Santino dealt with it in a perfect way, announced it really clear, kind of gave a synopsis about what happened and his kind of feelings behind it. And I'm going to play a bit of the clip of him announcing that he got COVID here, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
You don't.
Actually, I don't.
Just for me.
I don't.
So this is your second time here on the Whisk Ginge. Sadly, we can't be together because of what's going on, and I think I'll jump right into it. What's going on is I have COVID-19. I got coronavirus.
Fantastic.
Sadly.
I don't know about sadly. You've done pretty well with it. Now I'm jealous.
Well, here's the thing. There's so much to unpack here, so much to talk about, but the bummer for me was I'm not one of these dudes that's like, fuck masks and,
Right.
Who gives a shit. I was generally, for what it's worth, super safe, or about as safe as you could be, limited contact with people.
Yeah.
It was pretty remarkable how easily it was caught. It was caught, and not to name names, but a friend of a friend. We were having beers outside watching football.
How close? How many foot distance? This is kind of interesting.
The crazy part is it was at a rectangular table. I was at the head and he was sitting down kind of down the line, so to speak. So I would say, not to sound annoying, but 5 to 6 feet. I mean, he wasn't that close to me. But oddly enough,
Yeah,
we
but
spent
6
enough
feet.
time
I mean,
together.
there's a lot of data now about aerosols. It's maybe further than droplets. Blah blah blah.
Right.
And if you spend any time at a distance from someone, now were you in the sun? Were you outdoors
Outside. Yeah.
in the sun or in the shade?
In the shade.
See, that's interesting. Theoretically, the UV would have prevented that kind of aerosolized spread, but even so, outdoors should not be a kind of environment where you'd see aerosol spread.
Yeah.
But you sure he didn't come up and bring you a beer or something?
Well, we were talking before sitting down outside together, but we had masks on. And we were probably within a couple of feet of each other, but we were all wearing masks because we were waiting to get sat on the patio.
So again, like I said, he mentioned it, and he dealt with it in a really mature way. Again, I'm not comparing the entire clip, but definitely check out the show. It's basically Ginger episode number 103, and just a stark contrast in kind of the response was kind of illuminating. Do you know what I mean? It really goes to show just how much of a bad position, I guess, T-Fat K-Boys put themselves in, right? When they decided to go on the defensive about them getting they went on the defensive regarding the lockdowns in the first place. Super, really on the fringe, side of things, before we even had the science to really kind of support any argument on either side of things, because I was quite neutral regarding the coronavirus lockdowns. But of course, as we got more insights now, it's kind of been, everyone sort of kind of accepts that maybe the excessive lockdowns we had in the beginning were a little bit excessive. There maybe should have been a bit more of a clear instructions as to how we could go about combating this as a, wherever, even if you live in Europe or you live in the US, you would know that we probably went a bit over the top with the whole lockdown sort of thing. But unfortunately, we weren't necessarily maybe aware or made, it wasn't made clear to us the severity of the situation and what was actually needed in order to kind of get it under some level of control or some level of semblance of, normality. And now mostly, I guess, in most parts of Europe, we're in a point where, we have the second spike. Places in the US are blowing up all over the place. Kids are going back to university, going back to college, so the spread is just upticking. So things are going to basically go from bad to worse, especially now we're heading into flu season. So that was obviously an issue, but back then we didn't know all this stuff, right? So they were kind of against lockdowns and being all conspiratorial about stuff and just generally being dicks about stuff and not really being sensitive to their audience. And essentially they completely turned off everybody. It turned, of course, unfortunately, well, in the US, COVID is now a very hot button political issue, which it really shouldn't, but it is now. So if you come out of it in the beginning, it's basically spouting your anti-lockdown rhetoric without any findings or without any kind of intelligent, point of view, with any sort of nuanced take on it, you're just essentially ranting and raving about the lockdowns because you want to get back on stage and perform. It kind of comes across a bit disgusting, right? It comes across a bit bad. And of course, when you suddenly get it, no one's going to have any sympathy from you. So you can definitely see the contrast and response. And again, especially with Andrew Santino, my heart goes out to him because he was, for the most part, talking about COVID pretty seriously. He wasn't one of these people that were kind of, anti-maskers or kind of pretending to be a macho guy, not wearing one like Brendan was in the beginning, and now he's got his bloody bandana on and something all the time, and he's turned that into a fashion item. I'm sure he's probably going to end up selling bandanas himself in it. Thick Boy Bike Club bandanas? I'm sure they'll be coming out soon, very, very soon, even though he was against wearing face masks, which would be ironic to say the least. But yeah, my heart goes out to Andrew Santino, innit? He was looking forward to doing a pretty big tour, I think, with Krista Stefano. Is that Krista Stefano or Krista Stefano? I forgot his name. Anyway, the guy from History Hyenas, they were meant to do a tour together, a little kind of car show thingy that kind of, that Burt Crash is doing at the moment. So for that to kind of end now, especially, considering what's going on, considering the limited amount of stage time these guys get, looking forward to it, and then suddenly getting COVID when you're trying to be safe, when you're trying to do all the right things, sitting, socially distancing yourself, sitting outside, all those good stuff, and then suddenly you still end up getting it. It must be a real bitter pill to swallow. But hey, at least he's on the other side. At least it hasn't kind of, necessarily knocked him for six. He's mentioned already that he lost a sense of smell and taste, which, is probably a frightening experience to go through, but this is better than some people's situations. So I think there's some positives to be had there. But again, what a contrast in the response regarding that than what the T5K guy's done in the beginning. What a contrast. But again, get well soon to him, and hopefully we don't hear no more stories about people in comedy catching COVID, because they're performing in front of large audiences. You don't know where those guys are going back to. It'll be such a shame to see, an industry that is already on its knees, considering Corona and considering the lack of clubs that are open, to suddenly be tarred with a brush that they're responsible for sort of super spreader events. That'll be horrible to see. No one wants to see that. So again, if you're going to go out to a show, be safe, be vigilant, and obviously make sure the venue is taking stuff seriously. And obviously to comedians too, don't be negligent. Don't just put on a show and perform just because you want to perform and pick up a check. Try and be as involved as you can in making sure the space is taking all necessary precautions, because the last thing that industry needs, the same thing like the DJ world that I'm in, is a really bad event to go down where tons of people test positive, and essentially you kind of leave a bit of a black mark on your industry that negatively affects it when things start to reopen later on in the future. But again, what do I know? Moving on, what else do we have here to talk about? Let's quickly go through a couple other bits and bobs before I head off here. What else do I need to see here before I head up? I don't want to leave it. Oh yeah, this is another one. So another news, it seems like Bobby Lee from the Tiger Belly podcast is really worried about getting cancelled. I've kind of felt that in the last couple of weeks, or last few months, let's say last few weeks actually. And it makes sense because he announced, I think, a few times that he's developing a show. He's sold a couple of shows, so he's kind of re-entering the Hollywood machine, right? And I'm sure he's very cognitive or very aware of all the numerous cancellations that happened early in the year, mostly to do with very egregious sexual misadventures from some people. But he's obviously aware of the added attention that's been kind of shone on the stand-up comedy scene, and he wants to avoid any kind of unnecessary hiccups, especially when he's got some big deals on the table that are going to put a lot of money in his pocket. But obviously it's a chance for him to kind of re-establish himself, because he's always complaining about his position, how people kind of look down on him, blah 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 blah. So it's a great way to kind of re-enter, with this kind of momentum of the Tiger Belly podcast, and being really, doing some amazing numbers and being as successful as it is. It's kind of a different energy when you come back into the Hollywood studios and writer's room, when you've got all this kind of clout behind you. So he doesn't want to lose the opportunity. I definitely understand it. But of course, he's got a dicey past, right? As he's told through numerous stories on the podcast. And as if you're a fan of the show, you'll know some of the misadventures that he's had in his youth, and some of the more embarrassing and downright yucky things he might not have gotten up to. And I always kind of suspected that this would eventually end up biting him in the ass, isn't it? As it does any other person. I don't think it's fair. I think comedians should be allowed to live as crazy and as an excessive life as they can, because that's what's going to inform their work at the end of the day, right? We don't want straight-laced valedictorians giving us comedy specials. We want the weirdest, oddest freaks to get on that stage and tell us all the adventures they get up to in their lives, and stories surrounding themselves and things that they've kind of encountered. That's what we want. We want our comedians to be as dangerous as possible. I know that's what I want, but I know in this world that we live in at the moment, over sanitized, of course people are going to come and start digging up his past. And there was a story that happened a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, where somebody unearthed a clip of Bobby Lee talking about some hookup that he had back in the day with an escort, or with let's say what would you call them, prostitutes, somewhere in Southeast Asia that might have been underage or not. And of course at the time the story sounded dicey as fuck, but it was really funny, right? And of course some of it might have been exaggerated for comedic purposes, but it's a bit of a risky story. And now of course with his deal in place, that story got re-earthed. It felt like he was going to get cancelled again. Some tweets went out that may or may not be real. There was a rumor that supposedly Amy Kaufman, the woman responsible for the Chris D'Elia and Brian Callen takedowns, was essentially crafting a piece on Bobby Lee, soon to be published, which I assume is still true. Those kind of stories don't just come out of nowhere. I assume that story is probably going to release the same time whatever show he's producing comes out, which is really disgusting. Don't even, super horrible that they'd be vindictive enough to hold the story like that back and then drop it when his show releases. So for maximum impact, maximum coverage, I'm sure that's probably end up happening. Hopefully it doesn't, but I can definitely understand his frustration and his kind of edginess about the issue. And he kind of spoke about it here on a recent show from Tiger Belly 266, where a caller asked a question regarding some risque jokes they made in the past, and Bobby Lee made this comment regarding some of his stories. And it was very illuminating, very eye-opening, but also a little bit disappointing to hear him take this stance, because he's worried about essentially losing his career. But I understand you work this hard, you don't want to let go of an opportunity that you feel is once in a lifetime sort of opportunity. So I definitely get it, but as a fan, it's disappointing to hear him reveal this side of it. So let me play the clip for you now.
I work in a corporate setting for a company that sells tools that may or may not be branded with the color orange. The other day, I was telling my coworker who I have a friendship outside of work a story I made up. Let's just say it had to do with midgets and docking, the thing that Gilbert does. My boss happened to walk by. I'm not sure if he heard me or not. Should I be worried that I'll get in trouble? And do you guys ever worry about the things you say that are taken, the things that you say are taken at face value?
Oh my God.
Now, this feels like a bit of a canned question. It feels like they might have rehearsed this. It feels like a question that, you know, they kind of made up in order for Bobby to talk about this. And it's kind of neatly been placed at the end of the show. So I'm not too sure. But, you know, listen to what Bobby had to say regarding some of his more salacious encounters with the ladies.
This guy.
Should this person be worried that he was talking about?
Listen, guy. What's his name?
C Money.
To bring back the idea of the context of your heart.
Yeah, C Money. I was never gonna share. I was never gonna share what I'm about to share.
Then
I'm gonna share it.
Then don't do it.
I'm gonna share it. Because I was talking to my therapist, you know, about, you know, I was telling her about, you know, the things that I talk about on the podcast, and she's like, you know, but that thing that you just said isn't true. And I go, yeah, I know. In fact, this is so embarrassing to say. Most of the things I say, you know what I mean, in podcasts over my career,
Yeah.
is based either in, you know, some truth or they're complete and utter lies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you know, podcasting is a medium, and when you're telling a story, you know, it's like, you know, you have to mold it.
Disappointing. And I don't really agree. I think that's completely different. It's conflating two different things. I don't expect every stand-up comedian to go up on stage and tell me a funny story that happens to be true all the time. I'm sure there's some elements of the story that are going to be embellished to make the story better, right? That's kind of the art of storytelling, being able to kind of, you know, add and subtract certain things that kind of allow for a better, you know, comedic punchline or whatever it may be. But I expect when people are on the podcast, right, especially when they're surrounded by like-minded friends in the industry and shit, it's part of the reason why those podcasts are successful. Even some of the ones that I watch and some of the ones I'm sure you watch, is because you feel like you're a bit of a fly on the wall, right? With people that you kind of look up to, you'd be like, oh wow, I wonder what they talk about when they're behind the scenes, and you kind of get an opportunity to do that via a podcast. So you'd imagine most of these shows, most of these conversations they have, will be a conversation they'd have outside of the show anyway, a blight from, you know, some other private stuff, but you'd assume most of them would be. And when you're talking to your friends, I don't know about you, but do you make up stories when you're talking to your friends, just hanging out? You know, which is essentially what a podcast is, right? You're just hanging out with your friends, having a beer, shooting a shit. Do you make up stories? I don't just make up a story just so I can entertain them. You might exaggerate points, right, to make it funny. But if I didn't meet somebody and I didn't fall over off, you know, when I, you know, left the bus, or if I didn't get, you know, drenched with water by a car that speed past me on my way to work, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to just make it up just so I can make my friends laugh. I'm going to obviously share a story that I think is embarrassing, that I think is humorous, because I want to see my friends laugh. I'm not going to make up an entire story. So you can definitely see the trepidation and the fear in Bobby Lee's voice when he's talking about this thing, because there's a lot on the line for him. So I can understand him taking this stance, but it's concerning, again, as a fan, just myself in it, to hear that, you know, because he mentions later on in the clip, you know, you can watch it yourself, won't play the entire thing, but he does mention in the clip itself that even the famous story of him supposedly getting diddled by the guy that had Down syndrome is completely made up. Or no, that part of it is made up. The guy didn't have Down syndrome, he was just a regular dude. And he didn't actually sexually assault him. He doesn't think he did, right? He just kind of, he felt that it might have happened. And it's like, God almighty, man, like, this is horrendous. Like, how far will these guys go to in order to save their careers? This is like similar to what Brian Callen did when he deleted all the pictures of Chris D'Elia on his social media feed. We know you guys were friends. I mean, we're fans of your show. We know you guys toured together. We know you guys are really close. You did a flipping podcast that essentially has gone down in the podcast Hall of Fame in the 10-minute podcast. I mean, we know these things. But Bobby Lee's the same sort of things. You know, if you follow this guy from the previous shows that he's been on prior to even Tiger Belly, you'd know that, you know, and again, I'm a fan, I'm not going to repeat some other stuff, but he's got into some really dicey situations. So for him to suggest that all those things were made up just for comedic value is not, it's not believable, especially from a former addict right? Or somebody that's that's essentially going through sobriety. It's definitely you could definitely figure out that most of these stories were probably true. You don't live a life that Bobby Lee's life without getting involved in some very, very peculiar situations. So again, this is the basically unintended consequence of cancel culture. You're essentially turning in some of our more eccentric, creative, batshit crazy minds into cucks, really, right? You're turning them into wallflowers. You're sanitizing your comedy. He's basically now self-editing himself when he's on a show, which is part of the reason why you watch it, is because he's off the handle. He kind of goes off the cuff. He diverts. He goes over there. He goes on mad tangents. He says some crazy wild shit. And now you're turning all of our weirdos in society who kind of provide us with comedic escape, who allow us to sort of unplug from the terrors of the world, or just allow us to laugh, right? You're now turning them into what? Politicians. Like, who gives a shit if he did do what he said he did in the past, right? That's between him and God, right? Who are we to judge? Who are we to cancel him in this respect? And again, he's a stand-up comic, right? He's not looking after your kid, right? He's not leading a free world. He's not responsible for allocating your tax money. He's a bloody stand-up comedian. They should be left alone and let to do their thing. Again, that's a disappointing thing for me in that regard. I don't know about you guys. If you're a fan of the Tiger Belly podcast and Bobby Lee, Kalila and George, and the gang, is this disappointing for you? Do you feel as if he's let you down? I don't know if he let you down, but is it just disappointing to hear that somebody you look up to who you thought lived a bit of a crazy life is essentially making up most of his stories? Or do you understand that he kind of needs to protect his these deals? He needs to look after the people. He's got responsibilities with people who he's basically got involved with the programs or whatever shows that he's sold, and it's understandable that he'd want to protect it in light of what's happened to other people in his craft, other people in his industry. Let me know your comments below. Do you agree, or do you just think he's plain old lying? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What else do we have here? Let's move on in. Next on the list, we have we have an episode. We have the review from Vogue.com regarding Matthew Williams' debut show at Givenchy. I'm sure most of you are into clothes are aware that Matthew Williams, founder and creative director of Alix, one of the more prominent prominent brands in fashion at the moment, a very modern interpretation. Can you even say modern? It's not. A contemporary interpretation of Helmut Lang, I'd say, in that regard. Somebody who's kind of well known within the streetwear and menswear fashion scene. He got his start doing costume design for Lady Gaga, then kind of went on to do some work for Kanye, which then led him to have a friendship with Virgil. They had this really amazing faux boy band thing called Bintrill that it kind of really shook up things in the industry and kind of acted as a platform for each of them to go on and do amazing things. You got Heron Preston doing his own brand, you've got Virgil doing Off-White and now doing Louis Vuitton, and now you've got Matthew Williams doing Alix and now doing Givenchy. So essentially, from just screen printed t-shirts and putting a New York logo upside down and all that sort of stuff and creating hashtags and DJing really poorly at festivals, they've now essentially turned their passions or their dreams they turned their lifestyle into a job, which is kind of the quintessential slogan I kind of abided by in the early years, that was sort of orated by Aaron Bondaroff, formerly of a New York thing and formerly of the Bowery Gallery. So they've basically lived the dream. They're doing amazing things, and none more so than Matt Williams, who's the last to kind of get a bit of industry love and industry recognition with his appointment at Givenchy, which kind of needed a bit of life breathed into it since the heady days of Riccardo Tisci there. They needed a bit of a contemporary modern twist to it, and of course to appeal to the youth out there. And I guess for a first collection, it's pretty good. This is a review of the show here. Matthew Williams reveals his vision for Givenchy, very elegant, powerful and chic. I'd say just in terms of optics and just looking at it as a show, it's probably styled poorly. It's not the best. There's a thing that happens. I'm not too sure if this is an affect of somebody with no formal training coming in to lead a pretty storied brand, because part of me naively would assume that an atelier would just fix stuff, but I guess they're only kind of going by the instructions or leadership or whoever's kind of in charge and creative directing. But I've noticed, especially with Virgil's collections, the first one, Louis Vuitton, and this, whenever somebody that's not classically trained in fashion steps in and works with a big house or works with an atelier, works with a big luxury fashion brand, regardless of the resources, the clothes always just look a bit big. They always look a bit clumpy or a little bit odd, like shape wise. They don't look like they fit well, or they still look like they need what they look like they're like the first couple of runs of a fit or of a final piece. It doesn't necessarily look at the final product. I don't know, there's something about it that just looks a bit off. I'm not sure if it's me just looking into it too deeply, but it never looks finished, never looks as well. And again, this isn't like him just doing the brand out of his own studio somewhere in LA or something, right? Or in somewhere in Paris, right? This is him obviously having the access to the best resources the industry has to offer, and it still doesn't look finished. It still doesn't look as chic as it could be. So that's probably one thing I'd say. The styling isn't the best. I say at the moment, maybe he hasn't necessarily got a creative partner that he sort of kind of can bounce off of, but there are some elements in it that obviously are going to interest some people. I love this white look. I think it looks really cool, but again, it maybe doesn't necessarily divert that much from some of the stuff he's done at the leaks. But again, the shoes are a great detail. Maybe I think the suit might have been the same one that he wore in the interview that he did with Vogue. I'm not too sure, but yeah, the little clasp bag as well is a crazy little nice detail. I like the upper on the boots, actually, how they sort of warp at the top here. I quite like that little detail there. That looks pretty cool. And overall, I think it's a fairly decent debut, as debuts go. Again, I think if you're an experienced person in fashion shows, and the casting of course is pretty cool. You got Lancey Foe there, kind of go out there and download his album, really cool. If you're a fan of Playboy Carter, you'll be a fan of him as well. I guess if you're like, again, this look doesn't look great. I'm not really a fan of this tabby toe that everyone was going crazy over on the timeline. I never want my toes, like those kind of toes, to be touching each other. Just feels a bit odd. It reminds me of, when you go to get a manicure or a pedicure, is it, and they stuff those little foam things in between your feet. That's what it sort of looks like, isn't it? And it just doesn't look nice. It looks a bit odd. Then you've got that horn, I guess, on the bottom there of that heel that kind of is a bit of a nod to Alexander McQueen's era at Givenchy, but it doesn't look the best. Just even that color of the tights, just it's not very appealing. The leggings, the color of the leggings don't look that appealing. That material on the skirt and the bag is just a little bit garish. It's a little bit risque, to be fair, anyway, because as the first questions go in terms of materials used, color palettes, it's a bit much, in it. Just even this it's a lot of material in it, unnecessary material put in front of that probably could do with just being removed all in. I don't know, but that's just me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Who am I to judge? I've got a bloody discolored hoodie on. But I think if you're an experienced fashion head, you'd probably say there are probably others who probably could have done a better job. But I think where fashion's heading now, it makes sense that House of Givenchy would decide to get Matthew Williams involved, because obviously he's got his finger on the pulse. He is the cultural zeitgeist orbiter in some regard. He does sort of know how to make pieces of clothing, which is what you basically see with these guys that kind of come in from the outside, as opposed to creating an entire collection with a theme that kind of tied it together. They're just enlisted to kind of, it's not simple, but they're mostly hired in order to increase sales, right? They're mostly hired to increase sales, whether it's with the item, a particular look, but it's about making clothes, about making product. And these guys are essentially product experts, right? Whether it's the hardware, whether it's the accessories, whether it's the shoes, the outerwear, some of the collaborations, they know how to make items. They know how to ensure that they sell through and connect with whatever audience they're trying to appeal to. So in that regard, I'm sure these will do well. Some of the bags are really fairly interesting. The coats are pretty cool, but overall, it's a little bit underwhelming for me, just in terms of what I expect from Matthew Williams. I still think of the three, Virgil, Heron, and Matthew. He's probably I'd say, in my experience, from my opinion, he's probably the most talented of the three. He has a bit more of especially his experience kind of doing costume design with Lady Gaga. I mean, that will definitely serve him well in that respect. It's not traditional training in terms of going to a fashion school, but it's still better than, the other two that are in that lane. But oddly enough, Heron Preston's starting to look like the one that might have the actual je ne sais quoi, especially if he marries up with a really interesting brand. I could definitely, even though, they hired the guy from Y Project to do it, I could definitely see Heron Preston being the creative director of Diesel. I think that'd work out really well. There's a lot of overlap in terms of what they do there, but I still think there's a lot of room for him to grow. And again, as I think as a first debut collection, working with an atelier and working on the new processes. I still think it's a really, really good show overall, and I can't wait to see what else he does with it going forward. Again, I love Lancey Foe. Just don't think he looks good in clothes sometimes. I just think clothes kind of hang on him as opposed to kind of look like they, they like, look at the difference between this guy, what he's wearing, and obviously what Lancey Foe's wearing. It's just a bit odd. And again, like I said, stuff just looks a bit odd. I don't know why it is. Whenever non-fashion people get involved, it just looks a bit, doesn't look like it fits the best. But hey, overall, I'm still a fan of it. This is probably my favorite Lancey Foe fit. The hat with the horns on it referencing McQueen. It was funny to see some of the kids online, some of the kids that make their own little snapback hats, getting annoyed and frustrated that Matthew Williams was kind of ripping off their idea when, this idea has been copied by so many different brands out there. It's not even worth even mentioning, but yeah, that look is pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's a belt or just an accessory over the top, but it looks really, really amazing. The material on the trousers is pretty cool as well. Lancey's unmoisturized feet is not a good vibe, but hey, I love his guy's music, so I'm going to allow him. We continue here. Some pretty decent looks overall. This is a pretty cool, again, you see the difference between how this looks on this model and Lancey. Sometimes clothes on him look a bit odd, but I did like him when he used to walk for a Cold War. He's definitely one of the standouts when you see him being cast. But there are some good elements in it, some really nice pieces, some really nice colors, some really cool ideas. Once it gets fleshed out a bit more, it'd be interesting to see how it goes on. But this is far more attention. I think Givenchy has probably got more attention from this one show than they've gotten since maybe Riccardo Tisci's heyday. So in that respect, I definitely think it's worked out in that regard. It's been interesting to see how it goes on. Like, again, there's just too much going on in this outfit. Look at that. It's just too much. But I think once you strip stuff away and it kind of, I'll be interested to see once this gets styled in editorials, how, actual stylists kind of removed from the process of making his clothes sort of interpret what he's basically putting together. I think a lot more people will be fans of it. But again, like I said, for a debut show, I definitely think it's better than I expected. So it'd be interesting to see, and probably the best time to evolve and to grow and to kind of find your voice in a brand away from all the attention with everyone locked in their homes and stuff, right? But again, it'd be interesting to see how he sort of adapts, whether he decides to refine his Elix's voice via Givenchy, or whether he decides to make a completely different presentation, because at the moment it still has still a bit of the aftertaste of Elix running through some of these clothes. I wonder what happens there. Does he decide to kind of push away and kind of marry up, or does he kind of take what he's learned at Elix and sort of kind of present it through a more grown up, let's say, quote unquote, vision with Givenchy? It'd be interesting to see going forward. It'd be interesting to see. But yeah, some fairly decent ideas here that I'm a big fan of. Again, the gold accessories, the chains look really cool. I like the proportion in the trousers. The cuts in the trousers look interesting. The shoes look really cool. Some of the back reveals look amazing. This looks absolutely horrendous, but again, I'm sure there's an audience for something like this on the top. A lot of these shoulders, you saw this in Balmain as well, this sort of exaggerated shoulder, which I'm not really sure why this is becoming a thing. I just don't necessarily think it looks great in this sort of way. The way it's done here, it just looks a bit odd. There's probably some little fine tuning there that needs to be done. Again, stuff like this is going to be an easy sell, similar to the stuff that Marine Serre is doing with her little half moon print shoots and stuff. And the bags are going to be very popular. You can see those great pieces of hardware here that I'm a big fan of, which obviously Matthew Williams is sort of like well known for, creating good pieces of hardware. So let's see how this grows as it progresses throughout the seasons. Some interesting pieces, some good ideas, and again, a fairly decent debut from Matthew Williams. So let's wait and see. Anyway, that is the Agostinho Zinga Show, episode number 388. Thanks so much for tuning in as per usual. It's been a pleasure to have your company. If it's your first time watching the show, please make sure you smash subscribe and leave me a comment down below and smash that like button. Of course, if you're listening via the podcast app, please leave me a 5-star review and share the show with your friends. Until next time, my friends, take care, be safe, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Peace.